Good morning. Ohayou gozaimasu. So at our temple this morning, at Idaho Oregon Temple, we probably have about 20 people. And if it snowed a lot, which it might have, maybe fewer than that, because the Nisei, appropriately, they're smart enough to not drive when it snows. So you're a little intimidating. There are a lot of you. So I'm here to help you celebrate Nirvana Day. And so in honor of Nirvana Day, I would like to start my message by reading this passage describing the last minutes of Shakyamuni Buddha's life. Please join me in Gassho. At dusk, when the grove was cast in purple shadows, Shakyamuni Buddha entered into final nirvana. Before dying, he spoke his last words. Everything is subject to change. Remember to practice the teachings earnestly. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. So today's service, Nirvana Day, helps us remember the death of Shakyamuni Buddha, the historic Buddha, an enlightened man who lived over 2,500 years ago in India. Today we honor him, his life, and his teachings. We share the story of his life, and because it is Nirvana Day, we also remember his death. Nirvana Day commemorates the day that Shakyamuni left this world of attachments and suffering and entered Nirvana. So it's a sad day because Shakyamuni Buddha died, and it's a happy day because he entered a state of ultimate enlightenment. By sharing Shakyamuni Buddha's story, we help to pass his insights and wisdom, which we call the Dharma, on into another generation, which is why it's so great that we have adults and children here at the service, because it helps us pass the teachings along to the next generation. So 2,500 years ago is a long, long time ago. And I think sometimes it's hard to feel like things that happened that long ago actually have an effect on us. Can we really think that the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha still matter after all that time? Are they still important? Are they still useful to us today? After all, 2,500 years ago is like 80 generations. 80 generations. So you, then your parents, that's 1, grandparents is 2, great-grandparents is 3. How many people ever knew their great-great-grandparents? So people know, maybe you knew your great-grandparents, but you probably didn't know your great-great-grandparents. So let's do that 80 times, help me count. We're gonna go back 2,500 years. Okay, so that's back in the day of your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great. That's 10. Great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great. That's 20. Great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great. That's 30. Great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great. That's 40. Halfway there. Great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great. That's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great. That's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great. Great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great. That's a long time ago. That's a long time ago. It's kind of hard to imagine that far back, isn't it? So I'm going to let you keep thinking about that, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my temple. So I am at Idaho, Oregon Buddhist Temple, and it is in Ontario, Oregon. It is directly across the border of Idaho, so the far eastern part of Oregon. And it's a farming temple. A lot of our members still farm, and it's potatoes and onions, sugar beets mostly, but a lot of really good onions. And our farmers can grow onions this big. In our farming town, animals are really important. And so one of the things that we do, and I don't know if you guys do it, we have a pet memorial service. Yes. You guys have, okay. So we have a pet memorial, and it's basically like a Shotsuki service only for our pets. So at first, we had a separate day where we did the pet memorial service, and I don't know how the decision was made, but they decided to combine it with Nirvana Day. So we do combined Pet Memorial Nirvana Day service. Does that sound weird? Sound weird? I thought it sounded weird. Is it? So you got, on one side, you know, you're having this memorial celebration of Shakyamuni, and then on the other hand, you've got your, you know, memorial for your little guinea pig. You know, like Shakyamuni Buddha, guinea pig, together, really? But, do you know what guinea pigs say? So I thought about this, because the first time I had to give a Dharma talk on combined Nirvana Day and Pet Memorial Day, I was trying to figure out how do I pull these together. And I thought about it, and I realized that it's not a bad idea. For a couple reasons. First, Buddhist teachings respect animals as part of the great cycle of life and death and rebirth. A being that is born as an animal in this life can be born as a human in the next life, and if you're born as a human in this life, you might be an animal in the next life. Animal lives and human lives are deeply interconnected. Buddhist teachers actually, especially in other traditions of Buddhism, tell us to treat all animals as if they had been our mother in a previous lifetime. This is why monks and nuns in many Buddhist countries, and the Theravadan traditions in particular, don't kill anything, even mosquitoes. So basically in Buddhism, we try to remember that we're related to all living things. The other reason is that our Pure Land Buddhist tradition teaches us that Amita's compassion is not just for us humans, but for all sentient beings. Do you guys know what sentient means? Conscious? Yes. And one of the key points of being conscious is that you can feel pain. So can my guinea pig feel pain if I poke him? I think he felt that. Yeah. So he's sentient. So Amita's compassion includes my little guinea pig. So a few minutes ago I asked you how much we care about the death of Shakyamuni Buddha 2,500 years ago. Is his life so long ago that it's hard for us to imagine? I think it can be a little bit hard to think that far back. And what I have to do, the trick that I use to try to imagine something that happened that far away, is to try to make connections between my own life right now and the lives of Shakyamuni and his friends and followers 2,500 years ago. And one thing that I have in common with them is that I have relationships and friendships with other people and other living beings. Some things, like the clothes that we wear, or the food that we eat, or how we get around, have changed a lot in those 2,500 years. But I think caring about each other and caring about the sentient beings that we share the planet with is something that is pretty much identical to 2,500 years ago. And I think that thinking about the relationships that we have with fellow humans and also with our animals helps us to better understand some of the more difficult teachings of Buddhism. For example, the truths of impermanence, interconnection, and compassion matter just as much today as they did at the time of Shakyamuni Buddha. As we practice Buddhism and try to put the Buddhist teachings into practice, I think our pets are actually some of our greatest teachers. One of the lessons that we learn from our pets is the lesson of impermanence, because our pets die. They usually have shorter lifespans than we do. How many of you here have had a pet that's died? That's a lot of you. And how did you feel when your pet died? Sad. Sad. We all feel sad when our pets die. So that's part of the lesson of impermanence that our pets teach us, is that usually they die before us. And we have to learn to understand and accept their impermanence and love them anyway, and continue to love them even after they're gone. So Shakyamuni's life was also impermanent, right? He died 2,500 years ago. And I want to read now the story of his death. And as I do that, instead of thinking about it being 2,500 years ago, I want you to think about, what if it happened yesterday? What if it happened today? And what if it felt like maybe similar to what having somebody that you love or an animal that you love die? So just reflect as I read this passage. When Shakyamuni Buddha became ill, Ananda, his dear friend, cried. The Buddha comforted him, saying, "Don't be sad, Ananda. I am old and weak and cannot live forever. It is natural for everything that is born to die. I shall soon pass away into final nirvana, a state of complete peace and happiness. Call the monks and nuns together." The disciples cried and asked their teacher to remain in the world. With tears in his eyes, Ananda asked, "When you are no longer in the world, who will teach us?" And the Buddha replied, "What more is there to teach, Ananda? I have taught you all I know. There is nothing that I have kept hidden. My teachings are your teacher now. Follow them, and you will be true to me." So when I hear that story, I realize that I have a lot in common with Ananda. When somebody that I love, and really whether it was my father, or a friend, or my pet guinea pig, in every case, I knew that they were ready to die. I knew that they were old and weak. I knew that their life was coming to a natural end. And yet the first thing I wanted to say is, "Don't die. Please don't die." Which is exactly what Ananda said to the Buddha. So, this is Spice, by the way. She's named for her colors. So this is like salt and pepper and cinnamon. Spice. And Spice we had a guinea pig named Spice who looked just like her, so she's long gone, but we still love her in the form of the puppet. So we feel that way, right? When our loved one is dying, we want to hold them and we want them to not die. But then, of course, they die anyway. And this is where the last part of that story comes in. The Buddha asked his followers to remember him and learn from their friendship. This is something that we should all do. We should think about what a person or an animal has taught us and then try to use what they taught us to live our lives better. And by remembering the things, the lessons and the experiences of anyone who's passed on, whether it's Shakyamuni Buddha or a loved one, a relative, a grandmother, a pet, we should remember them and we should remember their stories. And we should remember their teachings, just like Buddha's followers did. And that's a way of keeping them alive. I mean, 80 generations. The story of the Buddha has been being passed down from generation to generation for 80 generations. And in this way, the Buddha is actually still alive in each one of us that knows that story. So I try to think, what did my guinea pigs tell me? What did my guinea pigs teach me? And one thing that guinea pigs are really good at teaching is enthusiasm for food. So, how many of you had guinea pigs? Okay. So, did you have the same experience when you go to your refrigerator and you start to crinkle the plastic bags that the produce is in? The guinea pigs get so excited. Sometimes I was in the refrigerator not to get them food, but it didn't matter. They always got food because they were so excited about the sound of the crinkly plastic bags. And I think, I should be, whenever anybody makes food for me, I should be that enthusiastic, right? Right? So I try to remember that. This is what, this is how we remember our loved ones that have passed on, is by thinking, what can we learn from them? What can we remember about them? And who knows, maybe the story of my squeaky, enthusiastic guinea pigs, maybe that'll carry on for 80 generations. What do you think? Spice, the story of Spice. So as we remember and honor Shakyamuni and all those who have died in our life, we keep them alive, and we keep those stories going. And I think that that's really the story of Nirvana Day, and it's the story of Pet Memorial Day. And so they do go together. Please join me in Gasho as I read these words. Do not grieve. I am old and weak and cannot live forever. It is natural for everything that is born to die. I shall soon pass away into Nirvana, a state of ultimate peace and happiness. I have taught you all I know. There is nothing that I have kept hidden. My teachings are your teacher now. Follow them, and you will be true to me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.